un minuto ad ognuna delle vittime, dovremmo restare in silenzio per oltre 11 anni. Dopo il minuto di silenzio ascolteremo il Cadice di Ravel, interpretato dagli allievi della Chapelle Musicale Reine Elisabeth. Durante il minuto di silenzio saranno proiettati in aula i disegni dei bambini detenuti nel ghetto di Terezin. Erano circa 15.000, se ne salvarono appena 150. A perenne memoria del loro dramma ci hanno lasciato impresse sulla carta le loro creazioni, oggi esposte nella sinagoga Pinkas a Praga, a cui va il nostro sentito ringraziamento. Più di 1000 parole, questi disegni illustrano le loro emozioni di fronte ad atrocità che nessun bambino dovrebbe mai subire, mai più. Grazie.
Thank you.
La seduta è sospesa per 5 minuti.
Session is suspended for 5 minutes.
Presidente. Estimados colegas, quisiera empezar hablando de un tema que nos da mucha tristeza, Venezuela. Como saben, la semana pasada, en ocasión de marchas masivas contra el régimen, el presidente de la Asamblea Nacional, Juan Guaidó, se proclamó presidente ad interim, apoyándose en la Constitución venezolana. Enseguida, una gran parte de la comunidad internacional, sobre todo los estados de América Latina, lo reconocieron como tal. Más de 40 muertos y casi 900 arrestos ocurrieron durante estas protestas. Esta tarde, el próximo sábado, el pueblo venezolano estará nuevamente en la calle pidiendo democracia, libertad y respeto de derechos humanos. El Parlamento Europeo en esta legislatura ya se pronunció 8 veces sobre la situación en Venezuela. Ningún otro país tuvo esta atención. Lamentablemente, la situación empeora y llegó a un punto de no retorno. El régimen de Maduro ha logrado que más de 3 millones de personas abandonen su propio país. Se trata del fenómeno migratorio más importante de la historia de América Latina. Si las cosas no cambian muy pronto en Venezuela, eso se agravará con consecuencias desastrosas para toda la región. Frente a los acontecimientos de la semana pasada, el Parlamento Europeo no puede quedar callado. He hablado por teléfono con el presidente Guaidó, nuestro único interlocutor, para asegurarle el apoyo del Parlamento Europeo. Hemos otorgado a la oposición democrática de Venezuela el premio Sájarov 2017. Fuimos la primera institución en denunciar la violencia de derechos humanos, en pedir sanciones contra el régimen, en pedir que se establezca una estrategia regional para ayudar a la crisis de los refugiados. A algunos países solo les interesa el petróleo. A nosotros nos importa la gente y el sufrimiento de la población venezolana. Repito, risus abundat in ore stultorum. Pides la traducción desde el latín en... Al pronunciarnos, no debemos pensar solo a una solución pacífica y una transición democrática, sino también reflexionar en la reconstrucción del país, para que la gente vuelva a una vida normal con comida y medicinas. Venezuela va a necesitar mucha ayuda e inversiones. La Unión Europea debe estar al lado de los venezolanos. Frente a eventos históricos donde está en peligro la democracia, es claro que tenemos que estar al lado de la libertad y los derechos humanos y no de la opresión. Voglio salutare anche la famiglia di Panel Adamovic, il sindaco di Danzica assassinato il 13 gennaio. Sono presenti in tribuna la moglie Magdalena, la figlia Antonina e il fratello Piotr. Il processo verbale e i testi approvati della seduta del 17 gennaio sono stati distribuiti. Vi sono osservazioni? Bene, il processo verbale è approvato. Prego.
Oh, go ahead.
Grazie Presidente.
Yeah,
Da 12 giorni il governo italiano sta tenendo in ostaggio 47 migranti salvati nel Mediterraneo con la complicità di altri governi europei che deliberatamente sulla pelle dei migranti costruiscono la loro vergognosa campagna elettorale. Quello che sta accadendo al largo del porto di Siracusa è una vergogna per l'Europa tutta, terra di libertà. La gestione del fenomeno migratorio deve essere riportata al centro del dibattito parlamentare e affrontata con gli strumenti a nostra disposizione, nel pieno rispetto dell'articolo 80, solidarietà ed equa ripartizione delle responsabilità. Per questo, signor Presidente, chiedo l'apertura in questa sessione di un dibattito sul caso Sea-Watch affinché episodi simili non si ripetano mai più, né in Europa né altrove nel mondo. Mi permetta di fare un appunto personale, Presidente. In questi 2 giorni che ho passato a Siracusa, il ruolo dei deputati europei è stato fortemente messo in discussione e credo che sia nella sua responsabilità difendere il ruolo dei deputati europei perché è stato negato l'accesso per le visite ispettive e credo che questa non possa accadere né in Italia né in nessun altro paese perché il deputato europeo è libero di svolgere il suo ruolo in tutti i luoghi, anche dove le persone sono state private della loro libertà. Grazie.
Access to people who've been deprived of their own liberty. Thank you.
Se gli Stati membri dell'Unione avessero approvato la riforma di Dublino così come proposta dal Parlamento europeo, questa vicenda non si sarebbe mai svolta, né questa né altre simili. Quindi credo che sia un messaggio forte da inviare agli Stati membri, fate in fretta per approvare la riforma di Dublino. Un attimo,
Calm down, please,
Onorevole Morvai,
Give me a moment. Mrs. Morvai.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Similarly to Ms. Kenge, I would like to suggest and recommend an urgent meeting, an urgent debate for this plenary to express our solidarity with the victims of Emmanuel Macron's policy's mass brutality. As you know very well, 15 people lost their eyes, 80 people had severe head injuries, and I suggest that the debate on Hungary should be deleted from the agenda because these human rights violations that are going on in France are far more serious than the ones that are going on in Hungary. Thank you.
Sono i gruppi che chiedono un numero qualificato di parlamentari che può chiedere un dibattito, una modifica all'ordine del giorno. Se il suo gruppo o un numero qualificato di parlamentari chiederà di mettere l'argomento all'ordine del giorno, lo sottoporrò al voto dell'Aula, l'Aula deciderà se farlo o meno, se il suo discorso vale per la proposta dell'onorevole Kyenge. Onorevole Gomes.
Mrs. Gomes.
Mr. President, I thank you for organizing the ceremony that we all, in which we all expressed our deep feelings for the Holocaust. I must nevertheless leave here my regret that an attack was made against the British Labour Party for anti-Semitism. I think this is outrageous. It's not doing right to all the people in the British Labour Party, all the members who are Jewish, who have fought against the Nazis, who died against the Nazis. And I'm very sorry that I did not hear a word about the Roma, the LGBT people who also perished in the Holocaust. Thank you.
Onorevole Gomes, le ricordo
Mrs. Gomes,
che
I'll remind you.
Le ricordo che le vittime dell'Olocausto o le persone, i survivors, sono liberi di dire ciò che ritengono Ma le ricordo che nel corso del mio intervento
in my own remarks,
le ricordo che nel corso del mio
I'll remind you that
se mi
in
fate
my own
parlare
remarks,
vi
please
rispondo,
allow
se
me to
no
speak,
va
then I will
difficile.
answer you.
Nel corso del mio intervento ho ricordato
In my remarks,
che le vittime dell'Olocausto
I mentioned
non erano soltanto
that the victims of the Holocaust
cittadini
were not only
europei di religione ebraica, ma c'erano
Jewish
anche
citizens
Rom,
of Europe, but also
Sinti
the
ed
Roma, the
omosessuali.
Sinti. I
Quindi
mentioned the
questo è stato
homosexuals.
detto in maniera molto chiara
I
nel mio
think that this
intervento di
was stated
apertura.
very clearly in my opening remarks.
Onorevole Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. I rise in defence of Rule 115, that Parliament shall ensure that its activities are conducted with the utmost transparency. And I am very surprised to learn that Mr. Weber's EPP is taking the unprecedented step of imposing secrecy on the vote on lobby transparency tomorrow. In a democracy, politicians do not make laws in secret. Citizens have a right to know how their representatives vote. Forcing the whole of Parliament to vote in secrecy on a political issue is not only ridiculous, it also undermines the citizens' confidence in European Parliament. Why is the EPP afraid to let voters know how their politicians vote? So I urge you, Mr. Weber, do the right thing and prevent your group from this blatant misuse of the rules to impose secrecy on a transparency vote. Do the right thing, if not, shame on you.
Bene. Un appello, non c'è nessun richiamo all'ordine del vi prego di quando ci sono dei richiami all'ordine del giorno di fare richiami all'ordine del giorno. Se il dibattito politico poi lo facciamo quando c'è il dibattito politico. Desidero informarvi che l'11 gennaio il Consiglio ha approvato il progetto di decisione relativo alla conclusione dell'accordo sul recesso del Regno Unito di Gran Bretagna e Irlanda del Nord dall'Unione Europea e dalla Comunità Europea dell'Energia Atomica. Di conseguenza il Parlamento ha ricevuto dal Consiglio una richiesta di approvazione di tale progetto di decisione. Il progetto di decisione relativo alla conclusione dell'accordo di recesso è trasmesso alla Commissione per gli Affari Costituzionali conformemente al allegato 5 del regolamento del Parlamento. Onorevole González Pons, prego.
González Pons.
Sobre el orden del día.
Después.
On the agenda? No, afterwards.
A seguito dell'elezione dell'onorevole Krišjānis Kariņš, primo ministro della Lettonia, il Parlamento, conformemente al regolamento, prende atto della vacanza del suo seggio a decorrere dal 23 gennaio 2019. Fa sempre piacere avere un rappresentante del nostro Parlamento che diventa primo ministro. Le autorità competenti della Lettonia mi hanno comunicato l'elezione del deputato del Parlamento europeo dell'onorevole Alexeis Loskutovs in sostituzione dell'onorevole Kariņš con effetto il 24 gennaio 2019. Benvenuto al nuovo collega e ricordo che siede con pieni diritti nel Parlamento e nei suoi organi alle condizioni previste dal regolamento. La Commissione giuridica ha proceduto alla verifica dei poteri degli onorevoli Boguslav Andrei Sonik, Ralf Paket e Carlis Sadurskis e ha proposto di convalidare il mandato con effetto a partire rispettivamente dal 20, 22 e 28 novembre 2018. Ci sono obiezioni in aula? Bene, i mandati sono così convalidati. Ho ricevuto dai gruppi PPE e FDD le seguenti richieste di nomina a modifica delle commissioni e delegazioni parlamentari. L'onorevole Alexeis Loskutovs nella Commissione per l'Industria, la Ricerca e l'Energia, nella Commissione speciale sui reati finanziari, l'evasione fiscale e l'elusione fiscale, nella delegazione per le relazioni con gli Stati Uniti. L'onorevole Nathan Gill al posto di Patrick O'Flynn nella Commissione per la pesca. Vi sono osservazioni? Tali nomine sono considerate approvate. Diverse commissioni hanno deciso di avviare negoziati interistituzionali a norma dell'articolo 69 quater, paragrafo 1 del regolamento. Le relazioni che costituiscono i mandati per tali negoziati sono disponibili sulla pagina web della plenaria e i loro titoli saranno pubblicati nel processo verbale della seduta. Ai sensi dell'articolo 69-quater, paragrafo 2, un numero di deputati o uno o più gruppi politici pari almeno alla soglia media possono chiedere per iscritto entro la mezzanotte di domani, giovedì 31 gennaio, di porre in votazione la decisione sull'avvio dei negoziati. Qualora entro il termine suddetto non sia presentata una richiesta di votazione in aula, le commissioni potranno iniziare i negoziati. Informo altresì l'Aula che mercoledì firmerò insieme al Presidente del Consiglio un atto approvato nel quadro della procedura legislativa ordinaria, conformemente all'articolo 78 del regolamento del Parlamento. Il titolo di tale atto sarà pubblicato nel processo verbale della presente seduta. Passiamo ora all'ordine dei lavori. Il progetto definito di ordine del giorno approvato dalla Conferenza dei Presidenti il 17 gennaio a norma dell'articolo 149 è stato distribuito. Onorevole González Pons, era per una modifica all'ordine del giorno?
Sí. Me gustaría, señor presidente, en primer lugar, comunicar a la Cámara que nos acompaña en la tribuna Francisco Sucre, que es el presidente del Comité de Asuntos Exteriores de la Asamblea de Venezuela y, por lo tanto, el número 2 del gobierno legítimo de ese país. También está en la tribuna de invitados Antonio Ledezma, que es el alcalde metropolitano de Caracas. Después de haberle escuchado su intervención en representación de este Parlamento, creo que no queda a esta Asamblea sino decidir celebrar hoy un debate sobre la situación política en Venezuela y votar una resolución.
Señor González Pons, pide un debate hoy y mañana la votación. ¿Hay diputados que quieren hablar en contra? Nadie habla en contra. Bien, votamos. ¿Quién está en favor de la propuesta del señor González Pons? ¿Es del Partido Popular? ¿Quién está en contra? Ognuno è libero di votare come vuole, non è che... Chi si astiene? Astensiones? Bene, allora il dibattito sulla situazione in Venezuela è aggiunto nei dibattiti della giornata di oggi e domani si svolgerà la votazione. Prego, onorevole Lange. Bitte schön.
Mr. Lange.
Dear President, as chair of the International Trade Committee, I want to request the postponement of the debate on the US-EU trade relation. Just a few days ago, the Commission has presented a draft of a mandate for negotiations, and just today, the implementation of the trade relation was published. So the International Trade Committee thinks we should have time to have a profound and critical discussion about these documents and present a resolution to the plenary to have a position of the Parliament. The International Trade Committee is preparing a resolution, and therefore, for these reasons, we would like to postpone the debate with a Commission statement and an upwinding resolution in the March 1 plenary.
Onorevole Keller, vuole prendere la parola?
Mrs. Keller, would you like to speak?
Against. Of course, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, the thing is that the Council has the Commission's draft to the negotiation mandate with the US right now on the table. So if this Parliament wants to have any say at all about what's being negotiated, then we have to make our position clear now. And we cannot wait for it later. Later on, we will not play any role. We will not have any say. And then we'll be again totally out of the procedure. And I'm very astonished because the S&D group so far has always been fighting very much for a formal involvement of the European Parliament. So I'm very astonished by this proposal, and I would like to ask colleagues to reject the postponement proposal, and let's rather talk about what's our position, what's our demands for the mandate, for the negotiation, and let's make sure the Parliament's voice will be heard in this. Thank you.
Grazie onorevole. Allora mettiamo in votazione per appello nominale la proposta dell'onorevole Lange a nome del gruppo SD per il rinvio alla successiva tornata della dichiarazione della Commissione sullo stato dei negoziati tra Stati Uniti e Unione. Il voto è aperto.
Negotiations between the US and the EU. The vote is open.
Il voto è chiuso.
Vote closed.
La proposta è respinta.
Is rejected.
A seguito della mancata adozione di tale richiesta, i gruppi politici hanno convenuto che la dichiarazione della Commissione su questo argomento sia spostata come sesto punto dopo la dichiarazione del vicepresidente della Commissione e alto rappresentante sugli ultimi sviluppi nei rapporti tra Cina e Taiwan. La dichiarazione della Commissione su NAIADES 2, il programma d'azione a sostegno del trasporto sulle vie navigabili interne, sia rinviata a una tornata successiva. Vi sono obiezioni? Bene. Allora, tale modifica è approvata. È relativa alla richiesta di modifica di giovedì della votazione sulle relazioni dell'onorevole Corbett. Allora, il gruppo di FDD ha chiesto che la votazione sulla relazione dell'onorevole Corbett sulle modifiche del regolamento del Parlamento sia rinviata a una tornata successiva. Inoltre, il gruppo dei Verdi Alleanza Libera Europea ha chiesto che questa relazione, che è stata posta direttamente ai voti, sia rinviata alla tornata di febbraio con una discussione approfondita. Poiché la plenaria decide le modifiche all'ordine del giorno di questa tornata, metto, dopo aver ascoltato ovviamente gli interventi a favore e contro, la richiesta di rinviare il voto sulla relazione dell'onorevole Corbett. La possibilità di avere una discussione approfondita su questa relazione sarà comunque discussa nella prossima riunione della conferenza dei presidenti. Do ora la parola all'onorevole Fabio Massimo Castaldo per presentare la richiesta del suo gruppo.
Thank you, President, colleagues. Rule 227 provides that amendments to the rules of procedure are to be examined by the committee responsible, the Committee on Constitutional Affairs. This is a rule, but this is also a basic democratic principle. However, tomorrow we will vote 3 amendments to the Corbett report on the revision of the rules of procedure, which, although they are of utmost significance, were never tabled nor discussed during the many meetings of the working group and the committee. SD with Jo Leinen, EPP with Schöpflin and ALDE with Mr. Goerens required that the decision on the future existence of political groups be put into the hands of the absolute majority of the Parliament through a vote on their political affinity. On the basis of which parameter? No parameter is established in this proposal. Is there, and this is a question, a political affinity between you, Mr. Schöpflin, and your group after it split up on the Sargentini report, which called for the activation of Article 7 against Hungary, led by your party? Just a little more than a quarter of your EPP colleagues voted in favour of your government. Should you already go with a non-attached? This is, I think, not a rhetorical question. And you, Mr. Leinen, apparently find elements of political affinity on the interpretation of the principles of democracy with the exponent of Fidesz that you were criticising so much in this plenary in other occasions. To do not speak about also ALDE, that many times showed us very different votes. Mr. Goerens, that until very recently was sitting beside members of his groups who collected signatures for Finland's exit from the euro, despite the pro-federal rhetoric. Democracy means, colleagues, first and foremost, granting opposition's rights. It can never turn into a tyranny of the majority. On behalf of the FDD group, I ask for the postponement of the vote on the Corbett report in line with Rule 149A. Thank you very much.
Onorevole Corbett, contro.
Mr. Corbett, against.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was all very interesting, but not entirely relevant to the procedural point that was moved, which was to shift the debate and presumably the vote, of course, on this report to a subsequent part session, on the ground that there hasn't been enough time to consider this report. I would remind the House that this report was drafted by a working group of the Constitutional Affairs Committee, a working group in which every group was represented. It then went to the AFCO committee as a whole. It has now come before the Parliament. It is subject to amendments in the usual way, as with previous rules reports, as indeed with most of our reports. There are amendments that come up and new compromises that emerge at the plenary stage. It was already postponed from December to January 1. It was postponed from January 1 to January 2. I wonder whether he's taking a leaf out of the book of Mrs. May about kicking the can down the road further and further and further until there is no time left to deal with it. Maybe that is what is intended by the EFDD group. In any case, I recommend Parliament do not follow that.
Onorevole Keller, prego.
Thank you. Just to clarify, our proposal is to have a full-fledged debate on the Corbett report. For us, it's not the point whether it's now or in February. We don't need to postpone it. What we want to do is debate it, because the Parliament should have a proper debate about what rules of procedure we're going to use, indeed, for forming the groups. That is a matter that is of concern for all the groups. It's a serious matter. So we should have a proper debate about that and know what we're going to vote about, rather than just doing it in a couple of minutes. It has really serious implications, the whole report, on the formation of a group, about the question about what sort of lobbyism we will allow, whether we have learned from the Me Too movement. So this concerns really a lot of things, so we should have a proper debate, but that's our point of view. We can have a proper debate now, no problem, and we don't have to do it in February. We can do it in February, but now the question is simply, do we have a debate? That's our request, to have a full debate.
Allora, prima votiamo la proposta del gruppo FDD per appello nominale. Poi, se la proposta è approvata, se ne occuperà la conferenza dei presidenti. Se la proposta è respinta, se vuole, possiamo mettere a votazione la sua proposta, cioè avere un dibattito oltre al voto. Il voto per appello nominale sulla proposta dell'onorevole Castaldo a nome del gruppo FDD è aperto. Avete votato tutti?
Has everybody voted?
Bene, la votazione è chiusa.
The vote is closed.
La proposta è respinta. Onorevole Keller, lei vuole ribadire la sua richiesta?
Would you like to repeat your request?
Visto che si voterà.
It will be voted on.
Thank you. I would like to request that we have a full debate on the Corbett report then in this plenary session. Thanks.
Quindi oggi. Allora mettiamo ai voti la proposta del gruppo dei Verdi. Chi è a favore? Chi è contro? Chi si astiene? Mi pare che ci sia una maggioranza contro. Se volete facciamo un check. Facciamo un check, calma.
Keep calm. Let's have a check.
Facciamo il check. Ho detto, se volete fare, vediamo un check.
If you want it, we'll have a check.
Avete votato tutti?
Has everybody voted?
La votazione è chiusa.
The vote is closed.
La maggioranza è a favore, quindi inseriamo il dibattito.
So we will have the debate.
Prima del voto. Bene.
Debate before the vote, then.
A seguito delle consultazioni
Following on from
con i gruppi politici, desidero sottoporre all'Aula le seguenti proposte di modifica al progetto definitivo di... Onorevole Chienti, mi faccia finire di parlare, poi le do la parola. Si sieda, ho visto, poi le do la parola. A seguito di consultazioni con i gruppi politici, desidero sottoporre all'Aula le seguenti proposte di modifica al progetto definitivo di ordine del giorno. Mercoledì una discussione sulle dichiarazioni del Consiglio e della Commissione sul recesso del Regno Unito dall'Unione Europea è aggiunta come primo punto all'ordine del giorno, seguito da un giro di interventi dei gruppi politici. La discussione congiunta sull'equilibrio di genere è spostata a giovedì come primo punto della mattinata. Giovedì la discussione congiunta sull'equilibrio di genere sarà il primo punto della mattinata. Seguirà una discussione con il primo ministro finlandese Sipilä sul futuro dell'Europa dalle 10 alle 12. Le votazioni inizieranno alle ore 12. Inoltre sono aggiunti alle votazioni i seguenti punti: relazione dell'onorevole Sikierski su norme sui pagamenti diretti e sul sostegno allo sviluppo rurale per gli anni 2019-2020, obiezione a norma dell'articolo 106 sulla cozza geneticamente modificata, obiezione a norma dell'articolo 106 sul Gran Turco geneticamente modificato 5307, obiezione a norma dell'articolo 106 sul Gran Turco geneticamente modificato modificato Mon 87-403 e obiezione a norma dell'articolo 106 sul cotone geneticamente modificato GHB 614. Vi sono obiezioni? Onorevole Kyenge, prego.
Presidente, era proprio sulla modifica dell'ordine del giorno, perché da tanto che ho alzato la mia mano. Io ho fatto una richiesta ben precisa da parte del mio gruppo, quella di chiedere in questa sessione un dibattito sul caso della Sea-Watch, proprio perché questo dibattito lo dobbiamo riportare all'interno, cioè questo caso deve essere discusso all'interno dell'aula parlamentare. Trattasi di un tema europeo, ma trattasi anche di un tema sulla violazione dei diritti fondamentali. Ho fatto questa precisa domanda e vorrei che fosse votata. Grazie.
Onorevole, dal suo gruppo, come previsto dal regolamento, non è arrivata nessuna richiesta di modifica dell'ordine del giorno che deve arrivare almeno un'ora prima. Per tutti gli altri gruppi questa richiesta è arrivata. Quindi non è arrivata a nome del gruppo una richiesta. Per quello non l'ho messa a votazione, perché il regolamento prevede di essere fatta almeno un'ora prima della seduta. Non è mia responsabilità, non c'è stata richiesta da parte del gruppo. L'ordine del giorno dei lavori è così fissato. L'ordine del giorno reca le dichiarazioni del Consiglio e della Commissione sul recesso del Regno Unito dall'Unione Europea. Ricordo agli onorevoli deputati che per questa discussione non è prevista la procedura catch the eye, né saranno accettate domande cartellino blu. Primo intervento. È quello dell'onorevole Ciot. A nome del Consiglio, prego.
And honourable members, 2 weeks ago I recall the steps already taken on the Council side following the European Council endorsement of the agreement on the withdrawal of the UK from the EU and Euratom and approval of the political declaration setting out the framework for the future relationship between the EU and the UK last November. This was just after having learned the outcome of the meaningful vote in Westminster, an outcome we cannot but regret. We were all hoping that at least this would have been a wake-up call leading the UK government and the British Parliament to come out with a clear sense of direction and timing. From what I understand from yesterday's vote, this is not the case and we face more rather than less uncertainty. What are the alternative arrangements PM May has now been instructed to negotiate with the EU? How can we reconcile the intention to discuss alternative arrangement with the clear EU position that the withdrawal agreement is the best possible compromise text achieved in the negotiations? I don't want to speculate on how the various options on the table will unfold, but this is clear that this state of affairs makes a disorderly exit of the UK more likely still, and its consequences more serious for all of us, but in particular for the UK. Economic operators are increasingly vocal about the impact of this uncertainty, not only in terms of direction, but also of timing on their activities, investment and therefore jobs. It is also clear that this uncertainty and the tensions it leads to, at sectoral and national level, will further test our unity and resolve. It is therefore all the more necessary, on the one hand, to resist the temptation of bilateral deals and, on the other, to reflect our common purpose in the swift adoption of the necessary contingency measures. The responsibility for ensuring the UK ratification of the deal remains with the UK government. Our determination to proceed should, however, comfort the UK government in its effort to complete their part of the ratification process. In this respect, within the limits of our principles and positions, Notably, as regards citizens' rights and the Irish backstop, one should remain open to talks and clarifications if this can help the ratification process in the UK. While having been clear that a renegotiation of the agreement is not on the cards, we should therefore stand ready to act once the UK government will have clarified the next steps on its side. In the meantime, we continue the ratification process in the EU, which I understand is also moving on in the European Parliament as well. Given the uncertainty I mentioned before, both in terms of timing and content, we have to continue our preparations for all outcomes, including a no-deal scenario. The Council and the Member States at national level are therefore intensifying their work on preparedness and contingency, building on the solid work already underway. This means, of course, new legislative activities at this late stage of the legislature, but we are confident that by working together we can deliver. I am encouraged in this respect by the agreement already reached on a few Brexit-related proposals. The Presidency, with your cooperation, is determined to facilitate the adoption of the necessary contingency measures in good time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chiot. The next speaker is the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. You have the floor.
Mr. President, honourable members, in less than 60 days, the United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union. This is a bad decision. Listen. Even as the Commission has defended the interests of the European Union, the spirit of respect and friendship has accompanied us at every step in these negotiations. The withdrawal agreement and political declaration agreed by all 27 leaders and the United Kingdom government is the result of that. The withdrawal agreement remains the best and only deal possible. The European Union said so in November. We said so in December. We said so after the first meaningful vote in the Commons in January. The debate and votes in the House of Commons yesterday do not change that. The withdrawal agreement will not be renegotiated. Both sides have said loud and clear that there can be no return to a hard border on the island of Ireland. No slipping back into darker times past. I believe the Prime Minister's personal commitment on this point, but I believe also that we need a safety net that secures us against this risk. We have no incentive nor desire to use the safety net, but at the same time, no safety net can ever truly be safe if it can just be removed at any time. Sometimes, from time to time, I have the impression that some hope that the 26 other countries will abandon the backstop, and so Ireland at the last minute. But this is not a game, and neither is it a simple bilateral issue. It goes to the heart of what being a member of the European Union means. Ireland's border is Europe's border, and it is our Union's priority. Ladies and gentlemen, we know from yesterday's debate that the House of Commons is against many things. It is against a no-deal Brexit. It is against the backstop. But we still do not know what exactly the House of Commons is actually for. The concept of alternative arrangements is not new. It was discussed in the negotiations. It is referred to in the political declaration. And in our letter to Prime Minister May, Donald Tusk and I committed to explore it further as a matter of priority. But the concept is not a plan. It is not an operational solution. Many in the House of Commons, both amongst those who voted for and those who voted against the amendment are aware of this. I will continue to be in close contact with Prime Minister May, for whom I have the greatest respect, and I will listen to her ideas. But I will also be extremely clear about the position of the European Union that I have presented today. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, laissez-moi vous dire clairement que le vote hier a accru le risque d'un retrait désordonné du Royaume-Uni. Nous devons continuer à tout faire pour nous préparer à tous les scénarios, y compris le pire. La Commission a commencé ses travaux préparatoires en décembre 2017 et ces dernières semaines, en étroite coopération avec votre Parlement, Monsieur le Président, nous avons accéléré nos préparations. J'ai envoyé une équipe dans chaque capitale pour aider les États membres à être prêts. Le Conseil européen a apporté son appui à ce travail depuis le début. Nous avons à ce jour publié 88 notifications montrant quelles sont les conséquences du Brexit dans différents domaines, ainsi que 18 propositions ou actes législatifs. Les 3 dernières propositions portant sur le programme Erasmus, la sécurité sociale et le budget de l'Union européenne ont été adoptées et présentées aujourd'hui. Je voudrais d'ores et déjà remercier tous les membres du Parlement qui sont concernés afin de garantir que nous parvenions à des accords rapides sur ces propositions et sur tous les dossiers urgents en attente. Il est plus que jamais important que l'Union européenne reste calme, unie, déterminée, ainsi qu'elle a été tout au long de ce processus. Dans ce travail, nous devons suivre une règle d'or. Nous ne devons pas reproduire les bénéfices de l'accord de retrait ou de la déclaration politique.
We have to follow the results of the agreement and of the political declaration.
I'm still an optimist by nature and a believer in democratic institutions by conviction. This leads me to believe that there can and will be agreement with the United Kingdom so that we can move on and move forward together with our new partnership. We will work day and night to make it happen and to ensure that we are ready in case it does not. Whichever way, I will always ensure that this House is the first to know and the last to decide. Thank you.
Avant de donner la parole à notre négociateur,
Now,
Monsieur Michel
I give
Barnier,
the floor to our negotiator,
je
Michel
vais
Barnier.
souligner
What I wanted to
soit
stress
au président de la Commission européenne, soit à
to the
notre
President of the
négociateur,
Commission
que
and
pour
to
le
our
Parlement européen,
negotiator
quoi
and
qu'elle
to the
soit
Parliament,
la solution du problème Brexit,
the solution
pour
to the
nous,
Brexit problem,
la
as we see
défense
it,
des droits des citoyennes européennes, 3
includes the
500 000
defence
qui habitent
of
au
the EU
Royaume-Uni,
citizens, all
est
3
une
million
priorité.
of them who
Nous
live in the
défendons
United
aussi les
Kingdom.
droits des
That is a
citoyens britanniques
priority.
qui
And
habitent
we
chez nous
also
dans
are
l'Union
concerned
européenne.
about the
Donc,
rights
c'est-à-dire,
of
tout
British
d'abord,
citizens
les
who live
droits
in the EU.
des citoyens européens
So,
aujourd'hui,
first of all, the rights
britanniques et qui viennent d'autres
of
pays.
British and
Merci beaucoup.
EU citizens and those from elsewhere as well. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Mesdames et Messieurs les députés, Madame la Secrétaire d'État, d'abord, merci, Monsieur le Président, de me permettre à nouveau, ici en plénière, de m'exprimer devant vous et ainsi, jour après jour, de consolider aux côtés du président Juncker le climat de confiance, la transparence, le dialogue que nous avons ensemble construit avec vous, mesdames et messieurs les députés, et en particulier avec le Brexit Steering Group, Guy Verhofstadt et tous les membres de ce groupe depuis 1 an et demi, au rythme d'une réunion pratiquement chaque semaine. Mesdames et messieurs, hier, pour la première fois, le Premier ministre britannique Theresa May a ouvertement plaidé pour réouvrir l'accord de retrait. Elle a, avant même les votes intervenant en fin de soirée, pris de la distance, ainsi, par rapport à l'accord qu'elle avait elle-même négocié et sur lequel nous étions tombé d'accord. Le gouvernement britannique a apporté dans la foulée un soutien explicite à l'amendement présenté par Sir Graham Brady qui demande le remplacement du backstop que nous avons prévu dans le protocole irlandais et son remplacement par des arrangements alternatifs qui n'ont d'ailleurs à aucun moment été définis. En même temps, la Chambre des communes a rejeté le scénario d'un no deal, sans d'ailleurs aucune précision sur les moyens d'éviter un tel scénario. Voilà la situation dans laquelle nous nous trouvons cet après-midi, dans le cours de cette très longue et extraordinaire négociation. Et à un moment que je veux, Monsieur le Président, qualifier, comme j'ai été en toute première ligne aux côtés et sous l'autorité du Président Juncker, du Président Tusk et de vous-même, un moment que je qualifie de grave et de très sérieux. Le Président Tusk hier soir, le Président Juncker à l'instant ont rappelé que nous partageons cette volonté du Parlement britannique d'éviter un no deal. Et je suis d'accord avec Theresa May, voter contre un no deal, comme ça a été le cas hier soir, ça n'élimine pas le risque du no deal. Pour nous, mesdames et messieurs, l'accord de retrait est et reste le meilleur et unique moyen d'assurer un retrait ordonné du Royaume-Uni et de mettre en œuvre de manière ordonnée la décision souveraine qu'a prise une majorité de citoyens britanniques et que nous respectons de quitter l'Union européenne. Et je pense, malgré les difficultés d'aujourd'hui, que nous pouvons atteindre cet objectif à condition d'être à la fois réalistes et lucides, respectueux et responsables, les uns et les autres, les uns avec les autres. Mesdames et messieurs, le backstop dont le président Juncker a parlé fait partie de l'accord de retrait et cet accord ne sera pas renégocié. Les conclusions du Conseil européen de décembre, qui rejoignent en tout point les déclarations et les résolutions du Parlement européen, ne laissent place à aucun doute sur ce point. Je voudrais dire un mot du backstop pour que tout le monde mesure bien de quoi il s'agit. Ce backstop, ce n'est pas du dogmatisme, c'est une solution réaliste. Nous avons cherché tout au long de cette négociation, sous votre contrôle, des solutions aux problèmes créés en particulier, mais pas seulement, en particulier en Irlande, par le Brexit lui-même. Et le backstop tel qu'il figure dans l'accord de retrait, c'est le résultat de ces négociations extrêmement intenses menées depuis 2 ans par nous avec le Royaume-Uni, jamais contre le Royaume-Uni. Le backstop, c'est une réponse pragmatique à la situation unique sur l'île d'Irlande après que le Royaume-Uni ait décidé souverainement de quitter non seulement l'Union européenne, mais de quitter aussi le marché unique et de quitter enfin l'union douanière. 2 ans ont été nécessaires pour trouver cette solution qui concilie plusieurs exigences. La première exigence, pour nous tous, c'est d'éviter à tout prix le retour d'une frontière dure en Irlande, c'est-à-dire de préserver les conditions qui sont là depuis 20 ans de la paix, de la stabilité, du dialogue sur l'île d'Irlande, depuis notamment la signature du Good Friday and Belfast Agreement. Je rappelle d'ailleurs que le Royaume-Uni lui-même, par la voix de son Premier ministre à plusieurs reprises, a confirmé son engagement comme co-garant des conditions de ce Good Friday Belfast Agreement. Et nous avons nous-mêmes accompagné depuis 20 ans, par le programme Peace, par le droit européen, par des politiques européennes, par le budget européen, la bonne réussite de cette coopération entre les différentes communautés. Première exigence. Deuxième exigence, c'est la volonté et la demande du gouvernement britannique de garder l'Irlande du Nord et la Grande-Bretagne dans un territoire douanier unique. Troisième exigence, évidemment la nôtre, celle dont nous sommes responsables collectivement, c'est la préservation de l'intégrité du marché intérieur. Mesdames et messieurs, ce dernier point est pour nous fondamental. La frontière irlandaise va devenir, par la volonté britannique, la frontière de l'Union européenne et du marché intérieur. Ce sera notre nouvelle frontière extérieure. Ce qui est en jeu, c'est évidemment la protection de tous les consommateurs et de toutes les entreprises de l'Union. Je vais le dire plus concrètement encore. La décision britannique de quitter l'Union, le marché unique et le marché intérieur a une conséquence pratique, c'est que toute marchandise, tout animal vivant, tout produit d'origine animale ou végétale qui rentre en Irlande du Nord en provenance de Grande-Bretagne entre non seulement en Irlande du Nord mais en Irlande, rentre dans le marché unique de vos pays, et que la nature, la qualité, la sécurité, la régularité de ce produit, la sécurité liée à la protection animale, et je le dis comme ancien ministre de l'Agriculture de mon pays, exige des contrôles, ce que nous faisons à chacune des frontières extérieures, partout dans l'Union européenne, des contrôles d'ordre fiscal, des contrôles d'ordre sanitaire, d'ordre vétérinaire, d'ordre réglementaire. Nous devons cette protection à tous les consommateurs, 500 millions aujourd'hui avec le Royaume-Uni et 22 millions d'entreprises. Nous devons cette protection à tous ceux qui font travailler et vivre le marché intérieur. Voilà. Et parmi ceux qui aujourd'hui demandent la suppression de ce backstop, il y a des parlementaires britanniques, j'en écoutais encore un ce matin, qui ont pourtant négocié avec nous et qui savent parfaitement que ce backstop, c'est la solution que nous avons trouvée pour ce qui est, comme le disait Jean-Claude Juncker, le cœur pour nous, Européens, de nos obligations et de nos principes, c'est-à-dire la protection du marché intérieur dans toutes ses dimensions, les droits qui s'y attachent, droits sociaux, droits économiques, droits des consommateurs, les droits environnementaux et la protection des entreprises et des consommateurs. Voilà. Et pour tout vous dire, mesdames et messieurs, quand j'écoute certains qui ont même participé à la négociation s'exprimer comme ils le font, je ne peux pas, j'ai du mal à accepter, franchement, le blame game dans lequel ils voudraient jouer contre nous. Voilà, le président... Je voudrais dire après le président Juncker que nous ne ferons rien, c'est aussi simple que ça, je dis calmement, qui fragiliserait le marché intérieur. Nous ne ferons rien qui conduise à compromettre l'avenir de l'Union européenne au présent de cette négociation. Et comme le président l'a dit, nous sommes cependant ouverts évidemment aux arrangements alternatifs qui ont été hier évoqués par la Chambre des communes. Le protocole irlandais et la déclaration politique les mentionne. La lettre des présidents Tusk et Juncker en a fait même une priorité dans les futures négociations. Nous sommes prêts à y travailler aussitôt après la signature de cet accord de retrait. Mais aujourd'hui, franchement, personne, ni d'un côté ni de l'autre, n'est en mesure de dire précisément, de manière claire, quelle serait la nature de ces arrangements alternatifs pour qu'ils soient opérationnels et qu'ils remplissent effectivement les objectifs du backstop. Voilà pourquoi je dis à nouveau calmement et clairement, au moment où nous sommes, et s'agissant de cet accord de retrait tel qu'il vous est proposé pour être ratifié, nous avons besoin de ce backstop tel qu'il est. Voilà, mesdames et messieurs, rejeter ce backstop tel qu'il est aujourd'hui, ça revient en quelque sorte à rejeter la solution qui a été trouvée avec les Britanniques. Mais le problème, lui, il demeure, tel que je l'ai décrit. Sur ce point et au-delà de la question des arrangements alternatifs dont j'ai parlé, le Conseil européen comme le Parlement européen, ont déjà à plusieurs reprises et clairement rejeté l'idée d'une limite dans le temps ou d'une sortie unilatérale du backstop, puisque de telles idées dénatureraient immédiatement l'idée même du backstop, qui est une assurance que nous ne souhaitons pas utiliser, comme d'ailleurs votre propre assurance dans votre appartement, votre maison, mais qui est là si jamais nous en avions besoin. Voilà. Je veux enfin rappeler que l'accord de retrait dont on parle et que vous connaissez, il va bien au-delà de la question de l'Irlande. Cet accord sécurise les droits de plus de 4,5 millions de citoyens. Monsieur le Président Tajani, vous avez évoqué la priorité du Parlement, nous l'avons faite nôtre, et quoi qu'il arrive, cette priorité pour sécurité des droits des citoyens, nos compatriotes qui vivent 3,5 millions au Royaume-Uni, de nos différents pays, et évidemment, réciproquement, la sécurité des droits d'1,5 million de citoyens qui sont résidents dans l'un de nos pays, ça restera notre priorité. Cet accord protège l'ensemble des bénéficiaires du budget européen. Dans les 28 pays, les engagements pris à 28 devraient être respectés, sont respectés à 28. Il met en place une période de transition de 21 mois, durant laquelle les entreprises, comme les administrations, des deux côtés pourront se préparer à cette future relation et durant lesquelles nous aurons le temps, un temps très court, exigeant, de négocier cette future relation dans une nouvelle étape de négociation. Voilà, cet accord, c'est le préalable pour construire la confiance dont nous avons besoin entre le Royaume-Uni, qui restera un pays ami, allié, partenaire, et l'Union européenne. Un vrai partenariat solide et ambitieux. Je voudrais juste ajouter que s'agissant de cette future relation, les Européens sont prêts et resteront prêts dans les jours qui viennent à être plus ambitieux et à retravailler la nature et l'intensité de notre future relation économique en particulier. Et vous savez, mesdames et messieurs les députés, qu'il existe plusieurs modèles de coopération économique avec les pays tiers. Chacun de ces modèles a évidemment son propre équilibre de droits et d'obligations, mais il existe beaucoup de modèles. Et je veux dire simplement que si la demande britannique évoluait au-delà d'un simple accord de libre-échange sur lequel nous nous sommes mis d'accord dans la déclaration politique, faire l'un ou l'autre de ces modèles, nous sommes et nous serons immédiatement prêts à en discuter et à répondre à une nouvelle ambition britannique par notre propre ambition, cela a déjà été dit, et par vous-même dans vos résolutions et par le Conseil européen. Voilà. Mesdames et messieurs, j'ai évoqué tout à l'heure le réalisme et la lucidité, comme vous l'avez fait, Madame la Secrétaire d'État, à moins de 60 jours de la date de la sortie du Royaume-Uni et en l'absence aujourd'hui d'une majorité positive à la Chambre des communes pour une solution identifiée et acceptable par l'Union européenne, il est, comme l'a dit le président Juncker, urgent et nécessaire de nous préparer à tous les scénarios et à mettre en place toutes les mesures de contingency plus que jamais nécessaires. Et c'est le travail qui a été confié par le président Juncker au secrétaire général et à toutes les équipes qui travaillent avec vous, avec vos commissions et avec l'ensemble des États membres. Je vous remercie pour votre attention et pour votre confiance.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Barnier. Vous pouvez compter sur le soutien du Parlement européen. Primo oratore, onorevole Elmar Brok, a nome del gruppo del Partito Popolare Europeo.
Herr Präsident,
Mr. President,
Frau Ratspräsidentin, Herr Kommissionspräsident, lieber Michel Barnier, Kolleginnen und Kollegen! Zuerst möchte ich mich bei Jean-Claude Juncker und Michel Barnier bedanken für die gute Kooperation, die wirkliche Transparenz, die Informationen, die wir bekommen und auch das Zuhören in diesem Prozess. Ein gutes Beispiel von Kooperation. Und daraus kommt auch unser großes Bewusstsein, dass wir diese Verhandlungsstrategie weiter unterstützen. Wir haben gestern Abstimmungen im House of Commons erlebt, in dem alle konstruktiven Vorschläge wie ein neues Referendum, Customs Union abgelehnt worden. Hat sich nur geeinigt auf die Position, dass Frau May nun das 3. oder 4. Mal kommt, um mit Brüssel nochmal über den Backstop zu reden. Nichts Neues. Ich glaube, es ist jetzt wichtig, bevor Frau May hierher kommt, dass sie endlich untereinander reden. Es ist ein Skandal, dass Oppositionsführer und Regierungschefin über 3 Jahre nicht miteinander reden. Wenn man austritt, sollte man wissen, was man haben will, bevor man andere belästigt. Bitte kommt mit einer eigenen Position, redet untereinander. Please talk to each other. Come to a constructive idea and come back to Brussels. That might be an important question. Talk to each other. We are united. You are not united within the government, within the Tory party, within the Labour Party. That's the main problem. Wir sehen hier, dass wir eine negative Mehrheit haben, die aus verschiedenen Gruppen besteht, die so weit geht von den Hard-Brexit-Leuten bis zu den Remainern. Und da können wir verhandeln und vorschlagen, was sie wollen. Diejenigen, die den harten Brexit wollen, werden nicht zustimmen. Und diejenigen, die noch hoffen, da ist mein Herz mit denen, aber nicht der Verstand mehr, dass wir sehen müssen, dass die alles ablehnen werden, was nicht Referendum ist. Und solange dies die Situation ist, wird da nichts zustande kommen. Und da kann mit Frau May über eine neue Art von Backstop was verhandelt werden. Das wird aus diesen Gründen genauso abgelehnt. Und Sie müssen das eine sehen. Irland ist Mitglied der Europäischen Union. Es kam aus der Europäischen Union im hohen Teil das Good Friday Agreement zusammengekommen ist. Ich erinnere mich an unseren alten Freund und Kollegen John Huhn, der aus diesem Hause heraus das mit vielen anderen gemacht hat. Wir werden dies verteidigen. Wir werden das Peace-Programm verteidigen. Wir wollen keine harte Grenze. Wir wollen aber hier, wie die britische Regierung gesagt hat, auch keine harte Grenze zu haben. Wie sie mehrfach unterschrieben hat, dass sie einen Backstop haben will. Im Dezember 2017 das erste Mal. Das muss mal klar sein. Wir werden Irland verteidigen und eine weiche Grenze versuchen hinzubekommen. Da muss man aber die Bereitschaft der anderen Seite haben. Und den Backstop, den wir heute haben, mit dieser Zollunion, ist die britische Erfindung. Das war der britische Vorschlag. Die Europäische Union hat andere Vorschläge gemacht dazu. Das heißt, sie wollen jetzt etwas verhandeln, was sie selbst vorgeschlagen haben. Ich finde das eine tolle Nummer, die da abgelaufen ist. Und deswegen miteinander reden. Sie selbst in London miteinander reden und diese Sache unter sich selbst klar machen. Und wir bekommen mit, wenn wir das Withdrawal Agreement haben, eine Übergangsregelung, in der wir die vielen Dinge regeln können, wie beispielsweise eine Freihandelszone oder weitergehende. Norwegen, Schweiz, alles sind wir offen dafür. Aber damit brauchen wir einen Backstop nicht. Es ist für jedermann klar, dass zu 99%, wenn wir die Transitional Period erreichen, Backstop gar nicht angewandt wird. Es geht also gar nicht darum, in der Sache etwas da zu regeln, sondern man will kein Agreement haben, aus den unterschiedlichen Gründen, die ich dargestellt habe. Und da bitte ich einmal, das doch mal wieder in Ordnung zu bringen, um das klar zu machen. Deswegen ist es sicher, dass wir die Preparedness-Gesetzgebung jetzt betreiben. Es ist wichtig, dass wir bereit sind, wenn ein Vorschlag kommt, offen zu reden, eine Lösung zu erreichen. Ich heiße es willkommen, dass das Unterhaus gesagt hat, wir wollen keinen Hard Brexit. Das wollen wir auch nicht. Ich will sogar überhaupt keinen Brexit, um das nochmal klarzustellen. Aber das ist die britische Entscheidung. Das ist die britische Entscheidung, dies zu machen. Das haben wir zu akzeptieren und wir müssen dabei sein, den Schaden so gering wie möglich zu halten für beide Seiten. Nur eins ist für mich klar, und das muss die britische Bevölkerung wissen. Der Schaden für Großbritannien ist immer der höhere. Der europäische Markt ist 14 Mal so groß wie der britische. Unternehmen werden abziehen. Alle, die für den europäischen Markt produzieren, werden aus Großbritannien weggehen. Es wird eine bittere Stunde für Großbritannien. Es wird eine schädliche Stunde für uns. Aber für Großbritannien eine bittere Stunde. Lasst uns zusammenkommen und vernünftig reden. Und das heißt, dass die britische Seite erst eine eigene konstruktive Position haben muss. Herzlichen Dank.
Excellent German from the British bench there, thank you. We move now to our next speaker on my list here, Mr. Gualtieri for the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats.
Thank you, President, Mr. President of the Commission, dear Michel. It is difficult to deny that we are facing a difficult and grave situation and that the risk of no deal has increased. The House of Commons has voted it rejects a no-deal Brexit, which is good, but at the same time it has asked to replace the Northern Ireland backstop with alternative arrangements, which is clearly not a workable option. We have seen with surprise the same Prime Minister who just a few days ago said that the best backstop was an essential part of the best deal possible, now calling for its replacement. This might have temporarily reunited a political party, but has not provided any positive solution to the Brexit deadlock. We have therefore to explain again why this Parliament and the European Council, in their mandate to the EU negotiator, have made clear that an operational and legally binding backstop is an essential pillar of a withdrawal agreement, and that we will not give consent to any deal without it. Preventing a hard border in Ireland and protecting the peace process is not a partisan position, and the single market integrity is a not negotiable principle for the European Union. The backstop is a guarantee, an option of last resort. It is necessary to ensure that if an agreement on the future EU-UK relationship is not concluded by the end of the transition period, the minimum essential safeguards will be in place to keep the border open while safeguarding the integrity of a single market. It is worth to recall that the backstop has been modified at the request of the UK government, and it was not an easy concession from the EU side. We did it to allow Northern Ireland to remain part of the same customs territory as the rest of the UK, avoiding tariffs, quotas of checks on rule of origin within it. And we did it notwithstanding the fact that our original proposal of backstops was simple, fair, and did not impose any material border in the Irish Sea. The only positive message from yesterday's vote is that the UK Parliament rejects a no-deal Brexit. This is welcome. A no-deal would be bad for everybody, but a disaster for the UK. It is right that MPs made clear that this is not acceptable. So what's next? We have always said, and we repeat today, that we want to see as close a relationship as possible between the United Kingdom and the European Union. It was the UK red lines that has made this impossible so far. This means that, for us, the only alternative to the backstop is a closer EU-UK relationship. If you want to ensure that the backstop is never used, build a positive majority for a more ambitious relationship, a customs union, at least a closer alignment to the single market. We are now less than 2 months away from the UK leaving the EU. We urgently need to see positive proposals from the UK on how to break this deadlock. If Parliament is unable to do this, then it should be put back to the British people. If the UK needs more time, we are open to it, but we need a clear plan or proposal on how it will help resolve the issue. We cannot allow more time for bluster of false promises. We are united, strongly united, calm, firm behind our negotiator. We will continue to follow the clear mandate given both by the European Council and the European Parliament. And so it is right that on the basis that is unity, we have to be worried, but we can be also optimists. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fox for the Conservatives and Reformists Group. And please show respect to the speakers. Mr. Coburn, that was directed towards you. Thank you. Mr. Fox, I hope he shows you respect. Thank you.
Madam President, I've heard 5 speeches this afternoon describe the efforts made to negotiate the withdrawal agreement and how good it is. But I'm sure you will all have noticed that this very withdrawal agreement was rejected 2 weeks ago in the House of Commons by an overwhelming majority. So now is not a moment for rhetoric, but for reflection. It was never going to be easy to disentangle the United Kingdom from the European Union, but there is now a clearer road ahead if we choose to take it. I know there are some here, Elmar Brok, still hoping that the UK will stay in the Union and are taking positions based on that hope. But this is not going to happen. It would be wrong in principle to ignore the referendum result. And in practice, it is clear there is no majority in the House of Commons in favour of such a course. The amendment designed to secure a second referendum was withdrawn, as it had so little support. The British government and the House of Commons wants to leave the EU in an orderly manner and with a deal. And to achieve that, we need to change how the protocol on Northern Ireland operates. We must do all we can to support the Good Friday Agreement. But it is a paradox that the backstop, whose purpose is to avoid a hard border, may, in just 58 days' time, be the cause of creating such a hard border in the island of Ireland. Let me repeat, the backstop in its current form will not prevent a hard border. It will create it. Let us all pause to consider this. It may be very easy to sit down to great applause today for a rigid defence of an existing position. History may not be so kind. Because as things stand, we don't have a deal. There is no deal until both sides have approved it according to their law. And it is simply not good enough to repeat ad nauseam that the deal cannot be amended. That leads to no deal. And that leads, as the Commission confirmed last week, to a hard border between the United Kingdom and Ireland. So it is my hope that even at this late hour, changes or additions can be made to bring a deal safely home. As Monsieur Barnier said, in the event of a no deal, the EU would find an alternative operational way to carry out checks and controls without putting back in place a border. That's a quote. Let us look at that now. Let us consider whether time limits and exit mechanisms offer a solution. Let us proceed with goodwill, remembering that flexibility and generosity are not signs of weakness, but of strength. For what is at stake is not just the draft agreement. At stake is the future partnership between the European Union and the United Kingdom. Let us ensure that we can construct a long-term relationship to promote our common values and our shared interests in an uncertain world. Let us find a way to move forward together. Thank you.
For the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats, Mr Verhofstadt.
Yes, after the vote yesterday, Mrs. May announced that she will come to Brussels, and for me, I have to tell you very honestly, she's always welcome. Certainly here in this European Parliament, it should be good that she comes to the European Parliament here, as we requested already more than a year ago. But the question today is naturally, for what? For what? To do what? Is it to change the red lines that the British government has used from day one? That could be a breakthrough, I think. That could change effectively the outcome of this whole process. Or is it, that's my second point, what will be her mandate? Because for the moment, I have to tell you, Mr. Fox, I have also yesterday not seen a parliament that gives a clear mandate to Theresa May. We have seen a vote against a number of things. Against the deal, against no deal, against the backstop. But until today, more than 2 years, the House of Commons has not voted one proposal in favour of something, in favour of a relationship between the EU and the UK. Never. The last 2 months, I have to tell you, have been very exhausting. Very exhausting. Not only at the other side of the channel, also here. Endless debates, long list of amendments, amendments going in all directions, selected by the Speaker, and then won and lost with a teeny-tiny majority. I give here the list. The Grieve Amendment, that was the 4th of December. That was for a Remain amendment. Huh? Won by 22 votes. The Cooper Amendment, also Remain amendment, that was of the 8th of January, won with 7 votes. Then another Cooper Amendment, that was yesterday, lost by 23 votes. Then the Brady Amendment, that was more a Leave Amendment, won by 16 votes yesterday. And then again a Remain Amendment, the Spellman Amendment, and to take the no deal from the table, won by 8 votes. Is that the way you can solve a problem of a magnitude? Is that the way to do that? Is that the way you do that? That is every day changing your opinion, every day changing your opinion, and in any way creating an uncertainty, an instability, instead of concluding a real new relationship between the EU and the UK. And I have to tell you, I'm looking to that and I cannot understand it, that what started as a catfight inside the Conservative Party is today an existential problem for the whole Britain. And like yesterday, voting, for example, the Spellman Amendment with a majority of 8 votes, saying the no deal is off the table, and then the Prime Minister coming back 5 minutes later and saying, no, that was for joking, that we did that. A no deal is still possible. I have to tell you, we cannot go further like that. This is a lack of clarity and a lack of stability. And I hope one thing, that is at this moment is happening as we speak, a meeting between the leader of the opposition, Mr. Corbyn, and the Prime Minister, Mrs. May. I hope that they will decide, or that they will discuss content, and that is not only eating biscuits and drinking tea this afternoon. Because it could be the solution for this problem if they start to working together on a cross-party approach so that we know what the position of the UK is in the future. Because we don't know it. Putting in fact, Mr. Fox, putting in fact country before party, telling us how they see that future relationship between the EU and the UK, and not using or abusing Brexit as it happened now to get rid of each other, because that is what's happening today. And if that is the spirit that emerged in Downing Street this afternoon, then the Prime Minister May can come and has to come to Brussels to tell us what this broad, stable majority cross-party wants as future relationship. And I think also there is the solution for the backstop. Because if there is a close relationship, deeper as Michel Barnier has indicated, then the backstop will still exist. But it shall not be necessary to use it. It shall be a theoretical insurance that in fact is not necessary to apply. Again, we are ready to go in that direction. Michel Barnier has indicated, Jean-Claude Juncker has indicated. It's time that the political class in Britain is also ready to go in that direction, the fastest as possible, because you're going to pay the first price of this lack of clarity.
Our next speaker on my list is Madam Scott Cato for the Greens European Free Alliance. Madam.
Thank you very much, President. Westminster is in meltdown. The internal contradictions of Brexit were laid bare last night. Brexit was never anything more than a bunch of slogans. It could never be turned into a coherent negotiating position. As we play out the endgame and the Brexit fraud is revealed, its supporters dream up fantasy deals so that failure can be blamed on Brussels. But we must hold our nerve through this Westminster chaos. A majority of UK citizens know that the best future for our country is inside the European Union. Here, we can continue to be part of the world's most successful peace project, and together we can tackle the huge cross-border issues we face, most notably climate change. We are now the majority, and as young people reaching voting age want to join us in improving our continent in mutual friendship, so our numbers grow. Now that MPs have rejected no deal, the clear choice is still between the deal negotiated between the UK and the EU and remaining in the EU. This choice must be given back to the people. The hostility of the supporters of Brexit, as we see here, to such a democratic check proves that they are running scared because they know, as I do, that the will of the British people has changed and has turned against them and their Brexit chaos.
Colleagues, if it were in my power, but it's not, the word rubbish would be banned from this chamber. I wouldn't share it with you, sir. We'll move to the next speaker on my list, Madam Zimmer. Please, this is a very difficult issue for all of us, and the least we could do is respect the person that has the microphone. There are too many, and I have to say, on my right, intervening with the debate. Please listen. It is far too serious an issue for us to play out in Parliament. This is not the House of Commons, colleagues. This is the European Parliament.
Danke, Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you, Madam President.
Wir haben natürlich auch heute in unserer Fraktion darüber diskutiert, wie wir angesichts der gestrigen Abstimmung mit der jetzigen Situation umgehen wollen. Und für uns als Fraktion ist völlig klar, wir stehen zu dem ausgehandelten Withdrawal Agreement als die erreichbare Lösung. Es ist nicht das Beste, was man sich wünschen könnte für die künftigen Beziehungen als Grundlage für den Ausbau künftiger Beziehungen zwischen der EU und Großbritannien, aber es ist ja offensichtlich das, was mit viel Kraftanstrengung, mit viel Ressourcen, mit viel Nervenverlusten in den letzten 2 Jahren, 1,5 Jahren ausgearbeitet werden konnte. Und ich denke, irgendwann muss man sich mal entscheiden, ob man das, was man erreichen kann, gemeinsam erreichen kann, ob man dann dazu auch steht oder ob jeder von seiner Seite aus nochmal versucht, ich möchte das rauspicken, ich möchte dort nochmal was machen und dann letztendlich die gemeinsamen Grundlagen massiv gefährdet. Und ich möchte hier an dieser Stelle daran erinnern, und das möchte ich auch mit Blick auf die Kollegen im House of Commons sagen, was wir als Europäisches Parlament geschafft haben, vor knapp 2 Jahren, als wir das Mandat formuliert haben für die Verhandlungen, ist, dass wir Einfluss auf das Mandat, das Herr Barnier bekommen hat, nehmen konnten. Und dass wir in dieser Diskussion unter anderem auch deutlich machen konnten, wie wichtig es ist, bei diesen Verhandlungen die Rechte der EU-Bürgerinnen in UK, aber auch der britischen Bürgerinnen in der Europäischen Union und andererseits aber auch die volle Frage der Stabilisierung des Friedensprozesses in Nordirland als rote Linien zu betrachten. Da ging es nicht um unsere eigenen Interessen. Da ging es um die Frage von Frieden und Stabilität in der gesamten Union. Und ich habe mir sehr genau schon Anfang Januar bei der ersten Abstimmung und auch gestern die Debatte im House of Commons angeguckt. Und ich hatte zum Teil den Eindruck, unsere britischen Kolleginnen und Kollegen nehmen uns nicht richtig ernst.
is that their British
Sie
colleagues don't
verstehen
take us
auch bestimmte
seriously.
Prozesse nicht und sie
They don't seem to
diskutieren so,
understand
als ob
procedures.
sie alleine
They're
abstimmen
talking
könnten
as
über
if
die
they are the only
Veränderung.
ones who are
Nein,
going
liebe
to be
Kolleginnen und Kollegen in
voting on all of
London, ihr
these
müsst mit
changes.
uns
No,
auch
colleagues,
darüber reden.
you
Ihr
also
müsst
have to
auch
talk to
unsere
us.
Position
You
mit
have
zur
to
Kenntnis
respond
nehmen. Ihr
to our
könnt nicht so tun,
positions.
als würde das britische Empire
Because we
auch in
can't
der
act as if the
Europäischen
British
Union
Empire
gelten. Wir haben hier eine eigene
was more important than
Demokratie.
the
Ihr
European
wart bisher
Union. We
Bestandteil
have our
dieser
own
Demokratie und ich
democracy.
habe immer
You've been
sehr
part of that
geachtet
democracy
und
to date.
hochgeschätzt.
I have
Das,
always
was ich
very
von
much
der britischen
appreciated
Diplomatie und
what I've
Demokratie
seen
kannte.
of
Ich bin entsetzt
British
darüber, welches
democracy and
Schauspiel
diplomacy.
uns
But I must say I'm
vorgeführt
rather
wird.
disappointed when I see the
Und
pantomime that's
ich
being put
denke,
before us.
es ist wichtig, zurückzukommen,
It's important
zurück
that we
auf
should be
die
coming
Grundlagen zu
back
kommen, was
to
wir eigentlich am Ende
principles.
erreichen wollen
We
und
need
sich
to be
nicht
looking at
einfach
what
nur
we want to
einzumauern.
achieve at the
Und
end
ich
of the
sage
day,
ganz
rather
klar,
than simply
die einzige
walling
Hoffnung, die
ourselves
ich
in
noch habe,
behind
ist, dass in dem
preconceived
Gespräch
positions.
zwischen Corbyn und Theresa May
I'm
tatsächlich
hoping
noch
that
mal
the
ein Stück
debate between
Bewegung kommt
Corbyn and
für
Theresa May
die
will
Verhandlungen
actually
mit der
get
EU.
some
Und dann kann ja noch
movement into the
draufgesattelt werden. Wir
situation.
sind doch offen dafür, mehr Beziehungen zu
I am
entwickeln,
very
klare
open
Beziehungen zu
to
entwickeln, aber was
developing
wir
an
nicht
open
machen
relationship
werden.
and
Also
having a clear
zumindest nicht von
relationship.
meiner
But what we're
Fraktion.
not
Ich
going to
bin
go
bisher
along
froh
with, in my
darüber,
group at the
dass
very
die anderen
least, and
Fraktionen, die
I'm glad to
meisten
see that
zumindest,
most of
das
the
auch
other
so
groups
ähnlich
in this
sehen.
Parliament
Wir
see things
werden
similarly.
nicht
We
zulassen,
will not
dass
accept
an den Beschäftigungsrechten, dass an den
a
Umweltstandards,
reduction of
dass
our
an den
employment law, our environmental
Verbraucherschutzstandards
standards, our consumer
irgendetwas
standards.
zurückgedreht
We do
wird.
not
Wir
want to
werden
see
nicht
the
zulassen,
clock turn back on
dass
any of these
das Good
principles.
Friday Agreement
We do not want
nicht
to
in all
see
seinen
the
Teilen
Good
respektiert
Friday
wird. Wir werden
Agreement
nicht
no longer being
zulassen,
fully
dass es
respected.
zu einer harten Grenze kommt.
We do not want to
Wir
see a
werden
hard
nicht
border.
zulassen, dass die EU-Bürgerinnen
We will
am
not
30.
accept
März letztendlich als
EU
Drittstaaten
citizens being
in
seen as
Großbritannien gelten
third
und
country citizens in
letztendlich
the
sich
UK.
einem Verfahren stellen müssen, das diskriminierend für sie ist, das ihnen alle Rechte
The
wegnimmt.
procedures should not
Und
be
das
seen as
möchte ich
discriminatory for
insbesondere den
them. They should be
Kolleginnen und
able to
Kollegen
preserve their
im
rights.
House of Commons sagen.
So that's what I want to say
Abschließender
to my
Satz.
colleagues in the
Ich
House of
hatte mich
Commons.
gefreut, als damals die britischen Kollegen sich das Recht erstritten haben,
I
dass
was
sie in
very
diesem Prozess eine Stimme
pleased
bekommen.
when
Aber dann sollen
our
sie diese
British
Stimme
colleagues
auch nutzen
managed to
und sollen
assert their
eine
right
Stimme
to
auch
have a
mal laut
meaningful
äußern,
vote.
was sie wirklich
But
wollen.
now they need to also be able to tell us what they want to do with it. Thank you.
Mr Farage, you have the floor.
Well, public opinion, indeed public anger, had a big impact on those votes in the House of Commons yesterday, and with it we've seen a diminution of the risk of a second referendum. For now, the prospect of Article 50 being extended taken off the table. And when I hear speakers, despite the Spellman Amendment, saying today they're worried that the risk of a no deal has increased, you're right, it has. But not because of what happened last night in Westminster, but because of the response, gentlemen, we got from you this afternoon. You know, even when the Prime Minister actually gets a majority behind her, and all right, I accept, she made a dreadful mistake by signing up to the backstop. You summoned her. At 4:15 in the morning, she left Downing Street. She went to meet the ultimatum that you'd set her. She signed up to something that has proved to be a disaster. She signed up to something that no country, unless it had been defeated in war, would have signed up to. We now realise that mistake, and actually the House of Commons, the country, is overall looking for a deal. But you know something? Before the referendum, no one knew who the European Commission were. That Maoist Barroso was a complete unknown. You guys are now household names. And what we've seen is an appreciation in Britain that unelected bureaucrats in Brussels have been talking down to and humiliating the Prime Minister of our nation, and we don't like it. And even when she comes back, trying to be reasonable, saying let's renegotiate, you're not prepared to give an inch. The reason that a no-deal Brexit's got a little bit closer is because of the sheer language and attitude, not just from the Commission, but from many in the Parliament towards the United Kingdom. I think public opinion will be very, very angry that there is no give today from anybody in Brussels whatsoever. I think many will say we're simply dealing with fanatics who are not prepared to be reasonable and make any sense of compromise. And of course, Theresa May has made compromise after compromise, way too many compromises in my view. So I think we are beginning to think that the public will come to a view that no deal is better than the backstop, and that's a big problem. It's a big problem for all of you who want to get re-elected in a few weeks' time, because no deal means no 39 billion and your voters will be coughing up the money. No deal means the 100 million bottles of Prosecco we buy every year from Italy will become more expensive, as will 750,000 German cars. So why don't we all prepare sensibly for a no-deal scenario? Why don't we prepare to go to the World Trade Organization, use Article 24, so that we can, after we leave on March the 29th, have a 2-year period of no tariffs, no quotas, no restrictions of any kind, no problems or difficulties with Ireland whatsoever. Brexit will have been delivered. You will have protected for at least 2 years your voters. That, I think, ladies and gentlemen, right now is the only possible constructive way forward.
Mr. Batten.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The last 2.5 years have been a long and tedious series of spurious impediments put up in order to prevent us leaving the European Union, as exemplified by the classic backstop bull. The House of Commons rejected the so-called deal and sent Mrs May back to renegotiate with a Commission that has already told us that it won't renegotiate. The Commons may have rejected the amendment to extend Article 50, but it knows very well that the Withdrawal Act itself allows that date to be put back, and the Council of the European Union can extend Article 50 if it so agrees. Will we actually leave on the 29th of March? Or will the British political establishment manage to overthrow the result of the referendum altogether? The best thing that can now happen is if we have no deal on the 29th of March and that we leave under the Withdrawal Act and on WTO terms. Article 50 will have expired and the treaties will cease to apply. If the British Parliament prevents this happening, then they will have put themselves in open rebellions against the British people, and that will have profound consequences for any belief in democracy that is left in the United Kingdom.
Mr. Woolfe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today is a good day for Brexit. Today is a good day for British democracy. Because over the past 2 years, our government has lost its way. Instead of negotiating effectively, it compromised weakly. The EU wanted to trap Britain in a backstop deal that makes us pay money, yet stops us competing against them on the world stage. The EU worked and encouraged Remain collaborators in this House and Westminster. It invited devotees from Blair to Chuckling-Omana, flowing like champagne at an Islington Remainers' wake. The constant negativity stalked us. Weakness cowered us. Division delayed us. But weakness no more. Despite this, the British people were not for turning. They valued their vote over Project Fear. They do not fear a WTO deal, but relish an independent.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Muchísimas gracias por estar acá el día de hoy. Esto para nosotros representa mucho. Esta es la primera rueda de prensa de la delegación diplomática del nuevo gobierno de Venezuela, del gobierno libre de Venezuela, que encabeza el presidente interino Juan Guaidó, el presidente encargado de Venezuela conforme a nuestra Constitución. Así que hoy